And we're live. Welcome to the AI Exchange, and welcome to our discussion today on how AI can be used to uncover personality and personality traits using just text and audio. It's going to be a great discussion. I'm very excited to be joined today by Martin and Max from Million Ways. There they are.
Hi,
Hi,
Martin. Yes.
Hi, Max. How are you?
Good. How are you?
They're the entrepreneurs behind Million Ways, which is an emotionally intelligent AI platform. We're going to do a deep dive today on how we can use AI to glean insights about people. So hopefully we can all understand each other a little bit better. We're live today on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So it's important if you have comments, please feel free to just put them in that social network, and we see all comments coming in, and we'll get to them at the end of our discussion. All right, again, our folks here today with us, Max, who is the CTO of Million Ways. We have Martin, who's the founder and CEO of Million Ways. And then myself, Miles Jennings. I am CEO of Recruiter.com, and I also host the AI Exchange group on LinkedIn, a group of a million people who discuss AI topics. And we host nice webinars like this one. Hey, a quick disclaimer. This will be about 5 seconds. We're talking about some complicated technical issues, and of course, don't construe this as technical, legal, or financial advice, and talk to professionals. Also, another quick disclaimer, Recruiter.com is a partner of Million Ways, and we're doing some development projects together. So just note that we do have a relationship, but we should still be able to have a very interesting conversation. A little bit about Recruiter.com. We are a hiring solutions platform. If you are looking to hire great employees, you can head to www.recruiter.com. And then, as I mentioned, the AI Exchange is a LinkedIn group. And for that, you can just simply go to LinkedIn, you type in AI Exchange, and then you look at groups, and you'll see it there. Or the link is here in the presentation. And it's a basic discussion group where we talk about everything related to AI. And we're really excited to host a lot of discussions like this one, centered around the future of AI, and especially focused on startups really disrupting this area and creating unique and interesting products. On to Million Ways. Either Martin or Max, would you like to do a quick introduction about your company?
Sure, I can. I was starting because I'm the first one with this company like 10 years ago. Started as a research NGO in Germany. So this was all about understanding people. And the goal was to build something that can understand people in a scalable way, and especially the unconscious of people. And this is how I started. I basically work on that all my life. I'm fascinated by this topic. And in the end, we ended up as an AI company. This was actually not the initial plan, but then we were 4 years ago. And that's when Max joined.
Very
good. My background, just to add on to that, is mathematics, and I joined after the data was available, and we first had this idea of using modern NLP techniques combined with the psychological background to build the first model that could parse language and output various personality traits and numbers that can basically define how your behavior and your personality is defined. And we've been working on building products around this and use cases ever since.
Excellent. What would you say is the mission of your company long term?
Oh yeah. The mission actually help people understand themselves better. This is. I published a book about that. I love this topic because I know how important that is, and I didn't understand myself when I was younger. Maybe I still don't do. I don't know. And we all know how difficult that is, because the unconscious patterns, the emotions, the true goals that we may forget or never discover in our lives because we don't have the chance or we're on another track. This is so important to do something with that, and it got even more important with the pandemic. So this is definitely the mission: help understanding people, help people understand themselves better.
Excellent. Hey, give yourself a plug, and maybe I can read your book as well. What's it called?
It's a German title, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that.
It's not in German, right?
In Germany we have, it actually, and it was like something like it sounds very bad in English, but it's something like become what you want to become. But it sounds very stupid in English. In German, it was a smart title, but it's still the right message. So you should be what you want to be. It's very simple.
It's a good message. I do not know German, so my wife knows a skoonch, but probably not enough to understand your book.
Yes.
When I find it interesting that in your applications, it's about understanding other people, but then your long-term mission is to help people understand themselves. Are you working in that realm right now of helping people to understand themselves through self-guided chat, or are you mostly going toward the, hey, understand, somebody that you don't know very well and understand their personality traits?
Yeah, it's always both. You can first understand yourself, and then you will meet the right others. This is also important. As, for example, the next best or maybe better job or team or co-founder or whatever you need. But first you need to understand yourself, and then you can understand others and also compare to others. This is very interesting. So our AI is also able to compare yourself with somebody else, like your colleagues or your boss or your co-founder or your father, maybe identify potential conflicts and even give hints how to solve that. Because if you understand two personalities, you always know what could lead to some conflicts, but also to potential.
Great. So people don't, not everyone knows your product. The product essentially derives personality, like a personality index, kind of like the Myers-Briggs type personality discovery, by input of any kind of text or voice-based data. So these are emails coming in, the content that you're writing, or perhaps an interview through audio. So this company, Million Ways, has figured out how to discern traits from that text or voice input. I thought it'd be good. We don't have time for a full demo, of course, but maybe just sort of 5 minutes on your product, and then we can dive into how it works and trends and so forth. Do you have something to share quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, as you already said, so basically it starts with an interview or an email or any piece of text. And what our AI then generates as an output, everybody here can easily test that themselves at home if they want to. Just hop onto millionways.me, click sign up, and then it will guide you through an interview process. And at the end of that process, you will end up with your personal analysis based on what we have detected in your language. And our outputs are driven by a very sophisticated personality theory. We have been the first ones who digitalized it. It even goes far beyond MBTI. MBTI was more static, and we decided to go with something that's more dynamic and actually more system-driven. And the different systems that we can measure are what makes up your behavior. For instance, your fundamental motivation, what really gets you going, what drives you, what makes you go live the life that you want. These are divided into achievement, contact, and power. And this really defines kind of what makes you go. Power motivated people, for example, they are driven by influencing others. They are good managers. They want to take the lead. They want to influence things. They want to have impact and change. Contact people are very driven by relationships and building networks. Achievement people are very driven by solving challenges, becoming better, increasing their performance.
And you already see that this is also relevant for team building, for example.
Correct.
So just as a side note.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Then you have the emotions. Here we kind of differentiate between kind of like a positive and negative effect. It's not that it's if you're feeling positive or negative, it's more about the current openness or willingness to dive into unknown situations. The more open or the more approach or positive effect you have, the more you're acting intuitively and are comfortable with the situation. The more avoidance you have, the more cautious you are acting, and the more you're analytically thinking before you're engaging in something. And then we also have the preferences. This is kind of what makes up your character, so to speak. This is kind of like MBTI, but more granular and more detailed. We can even tell you how extroverted you are, for example, and how introverted, how much you're focusing on details versus how much you're focusing on the big picture, how much you're driven by your gut or your brain by making decisions, and also how goal-oriented versus how process-oriented you are. And now I'm gonna also show you quickly one of the application use cases we have developed where this can also be applied in business. So here you can see the platform that we built for recruiting, where this is what Martin already said. We can not only give you your personality, we can also determine how well a personality would fit with another given personality. In this case, it's about figuring out the personality of a company or the culture, so to speak, and then finding candidates who would fit into that culture. And here, if you access the profile, it auto-generates kind of like a short blurb of their personality and what it means. It compares to the mean value with other candidates. And if you click on something, you can even read what it means in a job context. So this person is highly performance-oriented, for example.
Very
and
nice.
yeah, these are all the things that we have live and working right now. Everybody can test the demo for themselves on
that was my next question. I think you can go to Million Ways. Is it millionways.me?
Millionways.me is for exactly users finding out their personality if they're interested, a free personality test, essentially. And millionways.ai is another domain where you can interact with a chatbot, and this chatbot learns your personality over time. Those are
people love to test it out themselves. Is this something I can put my kids through? I'm serious. They love this kind of stuff.
Why not? We don't have any age limitations or anything. We just had to have one for the App Store legally for some reason.
And they need to have enough words. So it's maybe 1 year. It's maybe too early. But
that's
No, I'm much older than that. I'm different cycle of life, different stage of life than that. So tell us about what you need to discern these personality texts. Like if you say hi to somebody, there could be something in your tone about the way you say hi, but you want to look at a bunch of data, right? So what kind of data do you need in order to create that kind of output?
Yeah, we're only text-driven, only text-based so far. We also collected audio files. We're exploring opportunities to also analyze that data. But the initial model was built on text only, natural language processing, and the words that you use matter, how frequent you use them, what kind of sentences you build, also the context. So it's more about your language itself and your linguistic patterns. How you speak.
AIs, and usually they are not proven. Hello?
Sorry, just froze for 1 minute.
You froze. Okay, yeah, no problem. But there are voice AIs, but we have a different approach, as Max said, because we wanted to build something based on science, on a profound psychological model, and that's the difference, because it's explainable. The most important thing is it's explainable why we give you a certain result. And usually in other cases, you have some black boxes or some own studies, but this is not really science over a long time. This one is based on a very profound model. So this is the reason why we use words.
Yeah, great. Because we might have some sort of behavioral or organizational psych people in the audience. What psychological model do you use, and how do you pick it? I'm interested.
Yeah, we have picked PSI, which stands for Personality Systems Interaction. It has originated in Germany by somebody of the name Julius Kuhl, Kuhl. It has also been adapted already here in the US. It is not one of the most commonly used, like the Ocean Big Five or the MBTI, which is kind of surprising to us at this point, because all of them are very simplified, oversimplified, and outdated. PSI has multiple advantages over those because, as I said earlier, it describes, or it takes into account, the dynamics of a personality. So you're not always the same, obviously. You're different in your personal life than in your work life. and the PSI index can reflect that. And additionally, what differentiates us from those other personality models is the way that we get to know your personality. We let you speak freely and kind of like speak how you speak every day, rather than have you assess yourself with selecting a number from 1 to 5, selecting some emojis describing your emotion, or some multiple choice. Because we believe that this implicit way of measuring is way more accurate than your self-picture.
And we all know that we always try to manipulate these tests, and usually
Exactly.
it works.
Exactly.
Because it's always fun. We all know that
Yeah.
you want to play around, you want to see the different results. This is not, it doesn't really help you because it's a self-portrayal, but it's not always a self-picture, but it's not the authentic unconscious self.
I couldn't help but think of the which Harry Potter, what do they call it, the house? Which one are you? Are you a Gryffindor? You know, everybody wants that, right? No one wants to be a Slytherin, and so you kind of manipulate the questions a bit, you know.
Oh, really? You were? I was a Hufflepuff,
but
I believe.
I didn't know what that is.
Yeah, very nice. So you're affable and nice and friendly, and little bit of a pushover maybe.
Yeah, but exactly like that. This is fun.
Yeah.
And also we don't want to. I love these tests, right? So this is all fun and great, and it's gamification and things like that. But if you really want to figure out something about your unconscious self, that doesn't really help you. So.
Yes, I got some interesting pushback, I think, on LinkedIn when discussing this topic, right? So there is a lot of anxiety right now around AI. People think it's going to replace jobs, and it's shaking up a lot of industries, right? And so people are, they're a little bit nervous about this. And then you have, the concept of emotionally intelligent AI, something that tries to understand the nuances of like the sort of the human spirit, right? Almost more than the personality. And so I got some pushback, somebody saying it can never understand people, right? And we must not try to, right? What do you think about that? Like what's the positive? You can always think negatively about these things, but what's the positive case for trying to understand people better with AI?
I think it's an additional layer, right? So
Yep.
Max can talk more about that, but usually we talk about that as an additional layer because human intuition and human empathy is something very specific. Also human intelligence, by the way. ChatGPT is not human intelligence, and it also doesn't claim to be human intelligence. It's just not. And our AI is also not human empathy and intuition. It's just an additional layer, for example, for a therapist, for an HR professional, to get immediate insights into an applicant's personality or partner or patient, whatever it is, with an additional objective assessment. This is what it is. So the AI itself is not a therapist, for example.
Yeah, I would never say that anything is impossible in the long run.
Yeah.
But human intuition is something that is very, very hard to replicate, even right now with the LLMs. And if you ask ChatGPT, it will even confirm that itself. And we did that. And yeah, there's just no angle so far. We have had at least the angle to try to teach AI kind of like a whole personality theory, like a psychology would do that. They would also learn kind of like a psychological model and then apply that in their everyday life. And that's what we kind of replicated with our AI. It can do the same thing. It can assess people via that personality theory and therefore provide more insights and more valuable data points to whomever is interacting with that person or to the person himself.
And you mentioned ChatGPT, and most there's so many startups right now coming into the space. We built an app ourselves using the OpenAI API, right. And you were, as I understand, Million Ways was around. Maybe not, but maybe before it is the wrong word because they were doing research, etc. But it was independent of ChatGPT and
right.
OpenAI. Essentially, you're developing, your own model. Can you kind of describe that process a little bit? I think it's interesting to see how people are approaching just from a kind of a meta strategy. Do you go all in with some LLM that's proprietary, or do you try to do things independent, of that? So just a little bit on your strategy there.
Yeah, I mean, everything has its pluses and minuses. It's also if you decide to go with only an LLM, you immediately lose explainability. That's why we didn't go for that route. Also, back in 2018, they weren't. I mean, there was already Google's BERT, but they weren't that hyped yet. That only started like a couple of months ago, or half a year ago. What we decided to do is kind of have the supervised learning approach and actually use labeled data as our foundation. And this enabled us to have the validation, right? Because we always had psychologists working with us and validating that our outputs are actually what they should be. And this is something that's very important in trying to understand human personality, we believe, because you cannot trust some sometimes hallucinating LLM to come up with some things, because all it does at the end of the day is generate words, but based on statistics and probability. So that's not really reliable in terms of an explainable outcome. So that's kind of where we came from originally and what motivated us.
And you mentioned that training data on a AI Exchange talk a couple of weeks ago. I spoke to a founder in the image-based space. It's Secta Labs. They generate headshots automatically. And really what made the difference for them was really like humans training it, looking at the output and saying, hey, this is good, this is not. So talk about that process. So you had psychologists looking at the output. Do they then add to that? Or was it a simple like, yes, yes, this is a good trait. No, this doesn't seem to apply here.
Yeah, they always adjusted it with their own assessments in case it was wrong. So it works kind of similar to what you were describing with the image generator.
Yeah, and it seems to be that's the key, and it's what's missing from some companies. If they don't do, that's kind of like the hard work, if you will, or it's part of the heavy lifting. And if you do that successfully inside the niche, like that's going to increase the quality. How accurate is it right now? I had somebody ask, like, how is that possible? How accurate is it? It's sort of based on. It's a funny topic because it's a soft understanding of people's traits and sort of a character. But how is it relative to me taking an exhaustive? What if I sat down and took a 3-hour personality test?
Yeah, right now it's already more accurate than a single psychologist who would do the same assessment within a couple of hours. That's what we confirmed and validated in our research phase. So we do have an accuracy that is in the 80s percentage-wise. This has been, of course, measured with the usual performance metrics, like you split the data into training and testing and just analyze the test data in terms of accuracy. And what we have confirmed is that we are already more accurate than a single, more biased kind of psychologist looking at it.
Very good. You brought up bias, so I have to ask you.
Right.
Your training, your actual training data, how did you prevent bias? Like everything has bias in it, and I think some people would say that this is a particularly dangerous application when we're trying to understand people. So how did you approach that problem?
Yeah, we actually just talked about that in another context, because if somebody would like to do something like us, they would have to do the same work, which is very, very, and you can't just buy it. Science, you can't speed up science with money. I mean, you can speed it up, but not to 1 week or something. So what you have to do is the same work that we did, and that means you have to understand the words. Maybe you can elaborate more about the specific question. But
I mean, in terms of bias, what we did was we focused on using linguistic patterns only, and of course, I mean, we didn't interview every single person on the planet, so it is not completely bias free, and it probably also will never become completely bias free. But we have taken enough measurements for it to be as bias free as possible, in the sense that we have not pre-selected any candidates for our training data by any specifics.
Yeah. and it also attracted a lot of different people. So
Correct.
what I was saying, when I talk about other people, like for example, Microsoft would do the same. They would attract people that want to participate in this kind of research. Otherwise, you don't do that. And why should you do an interview with? I mean, they could ask some other external institution, but you know what I mean. It's hard to get this data and to get the trust of the people. And it helped us actually that we were an NGO with the goal to help people understand themselves better. And this actually attracted a very, very diverse audience, age-wise, ethnicity, gender, everything. So this was very, very diverse. But again, as Max said, it's never 100% bias-free. This is just impossible. But I guess as good as it gets.
And we did have initially
Yeah.
we did have small biases towards people being more extroverted and being more holistic, because it makes sense. The topic of changing your life and kind of wanting to figure out what drives you, what's your passion, appeals more to that group of people. That's what we had in the beginning.
Yeah, I would have to assume that anybody interested in this topic might display traits like curiosity or a tendency toward wanting to have self-growth, or that kind of aspect, and then that introduces a bias into the language. In doing some preparation for this, I was kind of looking at how these models typically work, and it seems like, and you've mentioned pattern recognition quite often. I think some people might be interested in just a very simple example of how pattern recognition works. Like, for example, is it if I talk about I or myself quite frequently, is that what might characterize me as something? Just can you give a specific example of a pattern inside text that you might be able to extract insight from?
Yeah, as an example, if you talk about, for example, going out with your friends a lot recently and engaging in new activities, kind of like these words, friends, groups, seeing people, kind of these word groups, they would lead to the openness scale that we showed, the positive affection, kind of like the more holistic approach, the contact orientation. Again, motivation is a lot of is really important. And on the other hand, somebody talking about what work they achieved yesterday, or they were really focused in doing getting some code written or whatever. These kind of words would lead to more of an achievement motivated person, or a person driven by focused on details, driven by results, driven by performance. So all of these things are taken.
But just to add, it's never that easy, right? It's always
that's just an example.
Exactly. It's very important, because otherwise people could think it's just a word count, and this is not the case. So it's always the whole picture, and this is why we also want 20 minutes of interview or a sufficient amount of text to do it. So if you just say one sentence, we don't give you a personality.
Excellent. I won't ask you to take out your crystal ball. I did that actually at another discussion. But I won't ask you to take out your crystal ball. But what, in terms of your product, forget broad AI, but in terms of your product, where could you see it going in the next couple of years? Like, how will it be better? What sort of best case scenario for what it's going to be able to do? What's the end goal here?
Yeah, I mean, very obvious, because we add something to existing platforms or technologies like ChatGPT. So it's not like we don't want to replace it. Obviously, that would be a very stupid idea. So it's just like adding something, and we have something that others don't have right now. And it's also hard to replicate. So we know that we need the right partners. We are having already a couple of partners. We already talked about that we are also partners. So this is exactly what we want to do. We don't want to sell own products necessarily, only if it makes sense and there is nothing else. But otherwise, we want to integrate into existing infrastructure because it just makes sense. And many people, or many institutions, many infrastructures need that, something like that. So it's a core technology like ChatGPT. Yeah. In this case, it's very similar. It's the core technology that you can use for your products.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. It's 2:30, so I thought I would bring in some questions here.
Sounds good.
There they are. How do you validate this outcome? You made a bit of a claim with a psychologist, so this person's holding you to it. You publish research or a blog post, anything like that people can see?
So there's already a lot of research on PSI itself, also in combining PSI with AI. The proprietary research that we have done, we are currently working on a white paper that will be published soon. But again, we basically had a group of 25 psychologists. We worked closely with the head of PSI theory in Germany, and he's still with us to this day. And he also made sure that everything is covered by any scientific standards.
But we will publish it. So this is
Yeah.
the short answer is we will. This is exactly what we want to do, because otherwise it's also not really science.
Correct.
So
Very good. I got an interesting one via a text. There's a ton of AI generated content on the internet, right? So that's happening more and more, and all the marketers and everything are pushing it. Is that problematic? This person said, is that problematic for Million Ways, because you are essentially, you might be looking at AI generated text?
Yeah, that's a question that we had to deal with recently too. That's kind of the caveat. I mean, when we sell the technology, we have to give the disclaimer that the source has to be authentic. So it has to be from the individual, the authorship. We actually tried experimenting already, comparing. There's character AI, for example,
or Karen.
or Karen AI. We already tried experimenting with differentiating those personalities from their chatbot alter egos with our software, and we already had some promising results. This is not validated yet. We haven't done research on that yet, but it looks promising. So we might even be the tool that helps uncover what is real and wasn't.
A good example is Karen AI, actually, because the original Karen is an influencer. So you have a lot of like text from her, or interviews, or
Correct.
TikToks,
Yeah.
And you have the AI, and it's a very different personality.
Yeah,
So,
the AI was only contact driven, for example,
Yeah.
which makes sense because it interacts with a fan.
Yeah.
And they only talk about relationship. And the real Karen was much more power motivated and trying to make money, obviously.
which is not judgment. It's just scientific assessment.
I have one commenter expressing that I'll put this in the trepidation or maybe nervousness camp, in that there's a Turing test, right? Which is, people who don't know, it's a test to see if you could differentiate a human versus a computer.
Yeah.
If you can't see the person, right? And so she was saying, I'll put her comment on. She's saying basically that this is the opposite. It's not us judging AI. So, for example, we all last year when we saw ChatGPT, we all said, "Oh, we're judging it, and hey, isn't that amazing? It's kind of like human text, right?" This is kind of the opposite. Is this AI judging us, and how do we kind of turn that, make sure that isn't a negative outcome?
I think the high-level answer first, right, is that we don't judge. We only descriptive AI, so it always describes your personality, but it's never judgmental. For example, if you have a low power motive, it's not good or bad. It's just what it is. Exactly.
Yeah.
And in certain contexts, this is good, and in other contexts, maybe not. But you always need the complementary partner. So it's always descriptive. It's never judgmental. Also positive, negative. This is why we don't call it like that. It's not like you are in a negative mood. It just means, it could even mean that you are satisfied because you are not open for something new. It could also be something positive. So it's never judgmental, but you can explain better.
Yeah, basically it's what Martin said. The theory is not really judging. It's just describing the systems that make up your behavior and using it as an information, what could be the next behavior, and also what you're missing. So we actually only want to use it for good. In the case that Martin described, in some cases it might be good to have a high power motive, in some cases not. But if you don't have it, you might need someone who has one.
And just 10 seconds, because I don't only want to have the positive answers. Negative, because it is true, in certain contexts, it could still be judgmental, because if you're looking for somebody with a high power motive and the AI says you don't have a power motive, it would be relatively judgmental. So this is how the people use it. And in this case, you are right, like with the question, because it could theoretically happen, like ChatGPT can be used for bad things and everything else. So it is actually a point, but as again, we reduced it to the minimum.
I would say that people are different. They have different skills and abilities, and it's about about that match, right? At least in my realm is in hiring in particular, and for that, there's no low power, high power, extroversion, introversion. There's no good or bad. There's just the fit within the job. And I remember taking one way back when I was in sales, and I was kind of like a very analytical salesperson. It's kind of a weird job for me. So I ended up not doing sales, which wasn't a terrible thing. And actually, with that, this next one, have people started hiring personnel using this technology? So is this maybe not even your technology, but just in general, what do you think about your company's current use of this type of technology?
Yeah, it's very outdated because most of them are using MBTI still, or DISC, or the Ocean Big Five. And we have actually talked to someone who sold a DISC to others, and he also confirmed that this is still missing and it's still outdated. It has to be revolutionized, kind of. And we provide one possible way for that. We also had people testing it already. Yeah.
So it is already used. Something like that is already used, but not in AI, because
it's certainly not widespread. Let's say that. I would say that even if you apply to a large company, if you apply to IBM, they're probably doing keyword matching. They are probably not judging your email communication relative to their company culture.
Yeah.
Exactly. This specific thing. We don't want to claim that there's nothing out there, because otherwise we get sued by somebody. This is now obviously there's a lot out there, but not like that, actually. Yeah.
Okay, very good. I think with that we're going to wrap up. I have just for some comedy, we have to put up Tanaj his comment. Don't tell us you're going to integrate this tech with robots and have form relationships with us. Please don't, guys.
We will all be very lonely. Yeah, I know. But with our robots, I don't want to have this world. So,
I feel like your company is trying to make greater, human connection and understand people more than anything else at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and I love to do that all my life. I mean, I did my personal interviews, like hundreds of interviews in my life, and I love this human interaction and human empathy.
Yep.
And I don't think it will be replaced within the next years or something.
Yeah, certainly not. Okay, thank you very much. We're gonna wrap up with that. To everyone, you can feel free to check out that personality assessment at millionways.me. Did I get that URL right?
Yeah, it's also on the App Store and Play Store.
It's on the App Store. Okay, so you can do it through your iPhone.
Yeah,
whatever you prefer.
Android too?
Yeah, of course.
Oh no, not of course. It's not everyone does that. Okay, thanks so much. This has been a great conversation.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's great.
All right, have a good one, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.